already into NFL week number 5. Erik joins me here for our game previews as we sit here early Thursday. We will have the buys start this week. So a couple less games as we will begin the buys. And we have a Thursday night game, Erik, that we won't spend a whole lot of time on because you and I are talking about it Thursday. People probably will be listening to this for the most part after this game goes. But Tampa comes off a big win over the Eagles. It was nice for them. They were able to establish the run a little bit with Irving and White both getting 10 carries and 49 yards. They got Otton involved. So now they have Evans, Godwin, and you bring Otton in the mix. That's a nice couple of weapons. For the Falcons, what's really crazy, they won a game where they did not score an offensive touchdown. It's the first time since 1977 and only the second time in franchise history they won a game without scoring an offensive touchdown and having 2 or more defensive or special teams touchdowns. They were literally gifted 14 points from the Saints in that game. There was a ball that Shaheed fumbled into the end zone that all the Falcons had to do was fall on it. That gave them a touchdown. And then another ball that got tipped on a tipped pass from Carr that literally dropped into a Falcons defender's arms, and he just had to run into the end zone. So those 2 plays completely flipped the game. I mean, even with all of that, the Falcons were still down and needed to drive and kick a 58-yard field goal to win the game. So those are their 2 wins. That win and the game closing, the last-minute drive against the Eagles, they could very easily be 0-4.
Yeah, Falcons are playing with fire. They got some questions in the offensive line. I really I know they brought in Simmons and Judon. I really don't like their defense. I think you can run on them. I think Cousins isn't right moving in the pocket. If you're able to get any sort of pass rush, you can really get home against them. Don't really even know what's going on with Kyle Pitts.
He got 0 last game. Where is he right now?
Where is he? What's going on with him? In terms of this game, obviously, the big trend is these small road dogs. 63% the last 10 years, 65% the last 5 years. But on the flip side, home favorites on Thursday night, 55%. Home divisional favorites, 58%. I really don't want to do anything on the side of this. What I just did was I took the Bijan Robinson. I took him as over receiving yards. Bucks give up the most receiving yards to opposing running backs. Robinson's gone over this total 3 of 4 games, averaging 33.75 yards per game, 4 targets a game, 4th on the team in targets and yards. I think with how bad the offensive line is, it's going to force Kurt to get the ball out of his pocket earlier than he wants to. I think because of that, we're going to see Robinson usage a lot. So in terms of betting wise, that's the only thing I did for this game. Sides, I really want nothing to do with it.
We move to Sunday, Jets at the Vikings. Yeah, I've been really impressed with the Vikings have done, and I'm looking for a spot to play against them. I'm just not sure if this is quite the spot yet. Now, the Vikings are 4-0, a lot of positives. They have a plus 57, which is what the 1998 Minnesota Vikings started with when they went 4-0, plus 57. Sam Darnold became the first quarterback in the Super Bowl era to win his first 4 games with a new team and throw multiple touchdowns in each one of them. He has 11 touchdown passes this year, 3 more than any other player. And in kind of watching the games too, it's not like he's had to be perfect. He's made some mistakes. He's thrown some interceptions. He's had some turnovers. Their defense is really what's been good, and they're taking enough shots that if Sam makes a mistake or two a game, it's not killing them. It's not like you're on that good defensive team where you can't score a lot and that one mistake has hurt you. So I feel a lot of positive right now about the Vikings. I feel a lot of negative about the Jets, and that's generally when I want to play the team, the Jets. I just don't know if the number's there for me. I probably would need a 3 to 3.5 to want to jump in on the Jets here. I don't think there's enough value built into the number yet for me to quite fade the Vikings. Jets are 4-17 on 3rd down last week. I just don't know if Saul is a good coach. I don't know how much Rodgers has left. They only had one drive. On one drive, they had a goal to go from the 1-yard line, 3 straight plays, didn't get it. Then on 4th down, they had a penalty so they had to settle for a field goal. Just like a microcosm of them so far. They had 13 penalties for 90 yards. Breece Hall had 12 touches for 18 yards. That's just insane.
Just absolutely dumbfounding. In terms of this game, look, I did it.
I couldn't play the Vikes. I would be Jets or stay away. I think I just probably am going to wait for the 3, but what did you got the 2.5?
I got the Jets at 2.5. I don't really think this is going to get to 3 because it'll just be hammered as soon as it does. Teams that start the season 4-0 ATS that are favorites in week 5, 43% ATS. Same scenario when the team is 4-0 record-wise, 41.7%. Rodgers as a dog, 56% ATS. I really believe we are who we are. Do we really believe Sam Darnold is a quarterback that's top 10 in adjusted yards, that is top 10 in yards, adjusted completion percentage, and TDs, or a quarterback that's in his 7th season on his fourth team? The secondary was projected to be one of the worst in the league. Their best cover man is Old Man Gilmore. I just don't think they have enough. I mean, you look at Mike Williams, you look at Garrett Wilson, you look at Lazard. I think they're going to be able to move the ball. More games mean what? More videos on what Flores is trying to do. This is a team that just gave up 29 to the Packers. When we look at their defense, as much as everyone wants to talk about Gardner, Reed is having a great season. So you have 2 different guys that you can throw at Jefferson. Vikings just had their worst game defending the run. The run scheme that the Jets do is a carbon copy of what the Vikings do. So I think they'll have success running the ball, have it be with Hall or Allen. It's a big situational spot too. Teams that were big favorites, 7 or more, that lost are 55% against the number. So you get that little bounce back. So, I mean, there's a lot of trends that say to take the Jets. And when we just kind of look at the quarterbacks that the Vikings have played, this by far is going to be the most experienced quarterback. What I have read and watched is that Flores is just confusing these younger quarterbacks into just making these awful mistakes. Purdy even said afterwards, with all the pre-snap stuff going on, he was getting lost. As much as Rodgers is Rodgers, and I'm not a big fan of his, he is a smart guy, and he's going to be able to put stuff in people in the right position. You got to run Hall, and I think that's what we're going to see after not doing anything against the against the Broncos last week. I'm not look. They're 4-0, but I'm not big on them 4-0. I think they still have questions of defense. I'm not the biggest Sam Darnold guy. I bet the Jets.
And I agree. I think at this point though, we're starting to get to the point where it's less likely that he's going to fall off a cliff. It's more likely that he is I don't think Sam Darnold is the best quarterback in the league, but he is hands down in a better situation than he's ever been before, as far as having maybe the best wide receiver as a security blanket to just always lean on. We forgot about Addison. Addison popped up the other day. It's oh, wow, that's kind of a nice weapon to have. They've been able to just really lean on Aaron Jones. I mean, Aaron Jones, you kind of forget about him. He's one of the best versatile backs. So while I do think that Sam's played better than, he's the 11th graded quarterback right now by Pro Football Focus. He's not number 1 where he's making all these incredible throws to where it's that's not going to happen. He's playing maybe a little better than an average quarterback. And I feel like a lot of people, if you took Sam Darnold out and you put them in a spot with Kevin O'Connell being a really good coach, we saw what he did last year with Dobbs. I mean, this guy made Dobbs for a few weeks look like an actual quarterback that can win games. And I think you hit it. What makes them really intriguing is the defense and how confusing it is. They're a hard defense to play because they're unique. They're not like a lot of the other defenses that you're going to face. I think I still need the 3 to 3.5 because I'm not sure if it's built in enough for me in their value quite yet. And I do worry about Rodgers' mobility. But yeah, I'm starting to believe a little bit more with the Vikings. But so far this year, every one of the teams that's been good or that's had good weeks has had at least one of these weeks where they've come back to life and look really, really bad so far. So there's one of those coming somewhere for the Vikings. Is it this week? We will see. We move to the Bears versus the Panthers. Caleb Williams favored in this game by 4. The Bears looked much more competent last week because they were able to run the ball. When you're able to run the ball, take so much more pressure off of Caleb. He had an efficient game last week where he had a 70+ completion percentage. So that was awesome. Swift, finally, he's off the milk carton, Eric. We weren't sure where he was after the first 3 weeks. Here he is. He had a huge game, 28 touches, 131 yards, 4.7 yards per carry, 16 carries, 93 yards, and then 7 receptions on top of that. Really, for the Bears, it's been their defense. They're allowing only 3 yards per play on early downs when they have their base 4-3 personnel in. That's best in the league. League average is 4.9 yards. They've got a stud punter who pinned the Rams like 3 different times inside the 20. He had a 66-yarder. The guy was all jacked up, Eric. He was puffing his chest out. You don't see punters celebrating like that. I thought it was kind of cool to see. But I just don't know if at this point the Bears should be favored by 4 really over anyone. We've seen how much more competent this Panthers team has looked with Andy Dalton. They scored 24 points last week. They were 7 of 14 on third down. They had 375 total yards. They scored on 2 of their 3 trips to the red zone. They can now move the ball through the air because they can run the ball. They ran for 155 yards. Chuba Hubbard's now a guy again. He had 104 yards rushing. Deontay Johnson is now a player again, had 7 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown. I think if I'm playing this game, I have to be on the Carolina side.
Yeah, I got the Panthers plus 4.5. I still like it at 4. My big thing is when Bryce Young was benched, we can finally look like we have a full 32 teams in the NFL again. First downs.
Yeah.
This is Bryce Young to Andy Dalton. First downs with Young, 9 a game to Dalton, 24. Total yards, 174.5 to 422.5. Yards per play, 3.5 to 5.8. Passing yards, 102 to 263. Yards per pass, 3.2 to 5.8. Rushing yards, 74 to 143 yards per rush. 3.95 to 4.75. They were 1 for 2 in the red zone. The time they scored a touchdown was when that last touchdown they got again in the Saints game week 1. With Dalton, they are 5 for 8. So to say the offense is insanely better is an understatement. I think the Bears are one of the worst teams in the league still. Look, I know they're 2-0. They could easily be 0-4.
2-0 at home. They're 2-2. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. They could easily be 0-4.
Absolutely.
Going into the game.
Where they've impressed me is defensively. Their offense and their coaching staff, like Waldron, is just I do not like what he's done offensively at all. Defensively, though, they were a sieve. You could run on them. They would have games where they just gave up the last few years. Like that's the reason why they're 2-2, because their defense has kept them in games.
Yeah, I think the big thing is I think the Panthers are going to be able to run on them. When you look at it, DVOA, they are 29th per game, 29th DVOA defending the run. I think they're going to be able to have a lot of success with Hubbard. I mentioned those stats. When you look at it, and Hubbard's just kind of been the little engine that could. So I think they're going to have success running the ball. Their offensive line is absolutely putrid. Panthers are going to be able to get a rush, and Williams looks like a pitcher throwing out of this set when he goes to throw. Because of that, if he gets off cue, it is really hard for him to. The
timing's not there yet. He's got to get his timing right.
He needs better coaching to work on his motion.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a combination. The offensive line, the coaching, the play calling, and like he's a unique player. And so you have to coach him in a little bit of a unique way. Like, and that's a positive and a negative, right? Fundamentally, he's not always just the best with the fundamentals. He has that higher ceiling that you have to try to unlock, but you need a good to really good coach to do so. And I don't believe they have it there.
There's an interesting tweet that came out and it showed, what is it? Who was it? Smith Njimu.
Oh yeah, the rookie. Yeah, when they talked about Waldron. leaving and going to the Bears, right? With Moore, was it with Moore?
Yeah, and it's just crazy, the route tree. But I mean, when you just kind of look at it, I think the Panthers are going to be able to run the ball. I think they're going to be able to get the Williams. I don't think the Bears are in any position to be laying anything over 3.
More, absolutely. Anything over 3, this just feels like you have to be on the Panthers side here with the way their offense has been so much more competent. I mean, this next game, Eric, the Ravens look like one of the best teams in football. We all saw them destroy the Bills, who a lot of people thought were a very good team. The Ravens are another team that they're 0-4. They blew one game to the Raiders, and then Isaiah Likely's toe being out of bounds, and otherwise, instead of being 2-2, they're
bitter. Still bitter. Right. I didn't get that bet.
They're 4-0 instead of 2-2. But this game right now feels like the game where you look at the Bengals. The Bengals could be 3-1 instead of 1-3. The Bengals should have won week 1 against the Patriots. The Bengals should have beat the Chiefs. And the Bengals offense has actually looked very competent throughout most of the year. In the last couple of weeks, they've looked a lot better. Their defense is terrible. I'm not going to try to defend their defense at all. I'm not going to defend the defensive players for the Bengals. What I will say is this just feels like the great spot to take the Bengals because the Ravens are so highly valued right now. The Bengals are a home dog. If we were talking about this game just 5 weeks ago, we probably would have said this was Bengals -3. Right?
Yeah, my whole thing is I'm going to be on the Bengals here. It's 2.5. I mean, it could get to 3.
Yeah, so I think you wait. Me too.
I'll wait till tomorrow because the thing I've noticed is Fridays kind of like when stuff starts to move. So if you guys wake up on Friday and it's still 2.5, just bet the 2.5. Ravens overvalued because of that big win against the Bills. Small divisional dogs. Last 10 years, 56. Last 5 years, 59. Burrow as a dog, 64%. I still have questions about this Ravens offensive line. I think you can create some pressure, get to him. I don't think Lamar can throw the ball to the outside. Everything's in the middle. Burrow, this offense has looked better and better. And of course, that's going to come with the timing. Burrow, Chase, those guys miss time. The more and more they play together and just get their timing right, the better this offense is going to look. They're coming off their best offensive game of the year against the Panthers. I think that's going to be able to continue against this Ravens team. And look, I know the Ravens are the Ravens. I still have some questions about them defensively.
Absolutely.
Defending
and even their offensive line. They look good. They've been looked better, but I still have some concerns about them. Offensive line. It's just it's the Bengals spot.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be on the Bengals. I'm going to say this though. If the Bengals, they start out 0-3 and they make the playoffs, who's winning the MVP? Joe Burrow.
Yeah. So maybe you bet Burrow right now.
If you think they win this game,
sprinkle a little
the spread, you should take a little bit of Burrow MVP.
Let's move to the Texans hosting the Buffalo Bills. Texans snuck away another win. This is another team that could have a couple more losses, no doubt about it. The Bills, I think for them, probably one of those games that you burn the film. What you take out of it is they're not as good as they had looked, and they do have some defensive holes. I think what I noticed for them too, they just kind of look small defensively in some spots where they're the type of team that they are like faster defensively, but not like bigger and probably going to have a tougher time in situations like that. If they're playing against a team that's pounding the run and they're down in games, it might be a little harder for the Bills, but I'm not going to take that much out of that game. And I think right now they're probably a bit undervalued. This one, I'm kind of hemming and hawing with a little bit though. I probably end up staying away. I haven't been all that impressed with Houston throughout most of the year. The Bills coming off that bad loss last week, I feel like we're going to get a bounce back performance from them. And I kind of think Houston got away with one last week. I just can't really get myself to either side in here. Do you have a strong opinion one way or the other?
The main thing with Stroud is teams are playing a lot more too high safeties, and he just looks like a lost puppy. Do we trust this offense of the Texans against a McDermott defense? I have questions about the offensive line of the Texans. Tunsil, who got hurt, came back in. He's been down this year. Right side's been an absolute train wreck. What do the Bills like to do? They like to run the ball. I know that the Texans are fourth DVOA defending the run, but they do allow 113 yards per game in the rushing category. They just gave up 156 to the Jags. I think Cook and the rest of the Bills, I think they're going to have some success running the ball. I think that's what they're going to look to do. Allen, road dog, they're getting one right now, 67%, getting 3 or less, he's 70%. Stroud as a favorite is only 25%. Granted, there's a limited sample size. I'm just not high on this Texans team. I mean, they have not looked impressive at all.
No, defensively, I haven't been that impressed with them as well. Like Stroud's the type of guy who's sort of a gamer. So you put him in situations where it's within one score late, you give them the ball with the chance to go drive. Sure. Like he can make some plays in that situation. Do I trust them down to down to down to down every game right now? No, I really don't.
You can't. So there's certain games I want nothing to do with it. And this is one of the games I want nothing to do with it.
That was exactly because I'm in this picks pool where I have to pick every game by the spread. This is one of the harder games for me. I probably lean Buffalo, but I don't like it at all. And that's just because I think Buffalo overall is probably a little safer, better. Let's move to the Colts versus the Jags. Another funny team, that Jacksonville, they're 0-4. Now, when we looked at their schedule, this is not that absurd, because it looked like they had a pretty tough schedule to start the year. It looks a little bit worse right now because they lost that game to Miami in week 1, and now Miami doesn't have Tua. So now Miami's metrics are all jacked up. So any team that lost to Miami or played against Miami, they're going to look a lot worse. When in reality, nobody else played the actual Miami Dolphins offense with Tua and the way that they operate. And I mean, Jacksonville again against the Browns could have won. Last week should have won. This is not a team that, even with their struggles, even with Lawrence not playing well, it's not like they're getting beat by 40 every game. They got beat up once this year against the Bills. Every other game, they've been competitive. They've been close. The Colts, they caught their nice game last week where it felt like they were the right side against the Steelers. They end up winning that game. They hold on late. They cover. Feels like this is really do or die time for the Jags. And then honestly, the Jags have this game. If they win this game, they have a couple games. They play back-to-back in London, which we talked about, where they play the Bears and the Patriots. You could blink an eye and they could be 3-4.
It's a weird game.
It's weird.
Taylor didn't practice.
Lawrence has been bad. I mean, we can't pretend like he's been bad. Like, feels like Peterson's on the hot seat. They're asking him already about his job status. Like, not a lot of positive stuff coming out of the Jags. Who knows that? How weird was that for Steichen, who you and I like a lot? It was so bizarre that Richardson's hurt, and then the next play he calls a run play for him. I thought that was so strange. Right when he went back in the game, and Richardson got even more hurt because he was still banged up when they called that run for him. I'm probably staying away from this one too.
Yeah, I want nothing to do with it. I'm somehow still in a survivor thing. I did use the Jags in that one.
Nice.
The whole Etienne situation, I really don't know. Like, really,
that was weird. He was just chilling on the sideline for a while.
Hurt his shoulder, and then he came back in. Offense looks different this year. Lawrence is really eyes are adjusting down the middle. Down the outside deep. He's not really using the middle of the field like he used to.
And maybe that's because Ingram hasn't been around the last few weeks too, right? That
last
probably
year
hurt.
When Kirk wasn't there, the offense struggled. So I just don't. Last 2 weeks, he's targeted Kirk a ton, playing in this cover 3. It does leave some stuff open to the slot. So I think I'd look to some Kirk props. Look, this is it for the Jags.
Yeah.
If the Jags lose this, the world is falling off.
Everything starts happening. Maybe trades, firing coaches.
Is Trevor Lawrence the biggest bust ever?
And the only thing that he has for him is that he has like a winning season and a playoff game win, which some busts never sniff. That's the only difference. But as far as I know where you're going with this, as far as the way he was perceived coming in, the talk about Lawrence, we were waiting for him for years. We were talking about how he should graduate early, but the league won't let him come play, and the league won't let him. So from that sense, for a guy that was supposed to be so good versus where he ended up, yeah, I think you could have that. He could be in that conversation for sure.
Yeah.
There are number one picks that never made it or never even had close to as good of a career as Lawrence has already had. But I don't think any of us thought that Jamarcus Russell was going to be the number one quarterback in the league for the next 15 years, right? We thought that about Lawrence. He was supposed to be the guy.
Yeah.
And
save your franchise.
and he's
everyone was talking about the Jets winning in that game, how it cost them Lawrence and everything. I don't know. Like, I look at it like he was supposed to be this, and he is now this. That's kind of why I look at it with what the expectation was.
Yeah. The Dolphins, this is a beautiful game here. Dolphins, Patriots. Patriots are a slight favorite. This is going to be Snoop Huntley making his second start at New England versus Brissett, who has been awful. I like Brissett. I think he's been a solid backup in the league. He just looks right now so slow, and it's a combination of things, Eric, for them because they have the Patriots have a terrible offensive line. They just lost their center again. They have no weapons, no receivers that can get separation. They've got Hunter Henry, who's fine as a tight end. He's not getting open. He's a guy that you just sort of pepper with some passes, and they can't run the ball at all because everybody knows that's what they're trying to do. And now the Dolphins, they may even be worse. And I've been really disappointed with Mike McDaniel because we've seen coaches like Kevin O'Connell take Sam Darnold and make Sam Darnold look awesome through 4 weeks. We've seen LaFleur make Willis look good enough to win back-to-back games. And Huntley wasn't there for very long, but between Thompson and Huntley, I mean, I got to say, I don't know. I'm readjusting my thoughts on Tua just a little bit, right? Because seeing the drop-off here, I'm not saying that Tua could go to a different team and take any team to the Super Bowl or anything like that, but I'm saying for this team, for the way they run their offense, they go from being one of the best offenses in the league, and then when Tua's not there, they can't even operate at all. It is an insane drop-off. Like, good offenses like Kansas City, when Reed would have good years with them, Mahomes would get hurt, and they could bring in their backup and still move the ball okay. Like, this team can't do anything right now at all.
Why doesn't Mike McDaniel get any of the blame, though?
I know. I agree with you.
I think what's the word I'm looking for? The love affection with him is starting to wear off a little bit. When you look at what LaFleur was able to do, bring in Malik Willis and making him look like a competent starter. And then, look, I know Huntley was brought in on short notice, but there is some tools Huntley has where you should be able to come up with a game plan. After a full week, if the offense still looks as brutal, then he seriously has got to start getting some flack. Dolphins could be a team that makes a move. Maybe they try to trade for Stafford if Stafford loses. The Rams lose. I don't know what the Dolphins will do, or do they just say the season was a wash? In terms of this game, it's an ugly game. I want nothing to do with it. Both these teams have some offensive line, defensive line issues. This is going to be a game where Rashad Stevenson is probably going to have 25 rushes and 137 yards, and they're just going to turn around and hand to him because the Dolphins, now with Phillips being out for the season, I believe, with that torn pec, they're going to be able to run all over them. Dolphins just can't do anything offensively right now with the game plan and the quarterback.
Eric, let's continue on. This one is the one I locked in a little earlier in the week, just right away. This was one of those pure have to play this game. Daniels has been incredible for Washington. The Commanders are a 3-point favorite. This was 3.5. When it was 3.5, I jumped on it right away and played the Brown side. Washington, I'm not going to take away what they've done. What they've done is incredible. I mean, but what they're doing is literally historic. We haven't seen the best offenses ever score as often and as efficiently as they've had. their wins have been against the number 21 defensive DVOA and the number 20 EPA per play team. So the Giants without a kicker. The number 29 defensive DVOA and the number 30 EPA per play allowed Arizona, who is one of the worst defenses in the league. And Cincinnati is number 27 EPA per play. So they played 3 of the bottom 10 defenses. In the last 2 weeks, they played 2 of the bottom 5 defenses. I think they look much better because of that. Now they're going to have to deal with Myles Garrett. On top of all of that, Washington's defense is horrible themselves. They just haven't had to really worry about it because they've scored touchdowns on every single possession. The Browns should be able to run the ball against them. The Browns last week had a bad drop from Amari Cooper, had a touchdown that should have been a touchdown that was not a penalty that got overturned. And I say this as someone who had the Raiders. It shouldn't have been called back. It was not a holding call. Deshaun Watson actually played a little bit better last week. This just feels like the spot of spots to take the Browns at anything over +3. What do you think about Commanders Browns?
Yeah, I got the Browns at +3.5. We talk about all the time buying low and selling high. Is there any team that's higher right now than the Commanders? Jaden Daniels, who is literally scared to throw the ball the first 2 games of the year, is a -140 favorite to win the Rookie of the Year. Teams that won by 24 points or more that are home favorites, 46% against the number. This is going to be the best defense that Daniels has played against, and Schwartz is going to make his life miserable. The biggest thing for the Commanders has been the success of their offensive line. And I'm kind of kicking myself because I didn't have these guys graded high, but where did all these guys come from? They all came from the Chiefs, a winning organization that came in there to help lay the groundwork. When we look at the best pass rushers this offensive line has played against, the best one has been Thibodeau. And against the Giants, they could not score a TD because of the pass rush they were to create with him. I think Garrett's going to be living in the backfield. Plus, with how bad defensively the Commanders have been, can you really trust them laying anything over the key number of 3? This is even after last week's game. DVOA, 30th. Defending the pass, 30th. Defending the rush, 28th. I know the Browns have struggled offensively. I think they're going to be able to move the ball. The Commanders' secondary could be one of the worst in the leagues. Browns will be able to move the ball in the air. Now, look, I don't think Nick Chubb's going to play. And if he does play, it's going to be in a limited capacity. But
so you're not expecting this to be like I agree with you. We're not expecting this to be like leaning on Chubb for 25 carries type.
But I mean, the thing I think Chubb does, and that was evident with how everyone reacted when he got hurt, he's the leader of this team. Everyone looks up to him.
Yeah.
Him just being there in pads, getting 2 to 4 touches is going to be a big morale boost to everyone on that team. Another thing, we look at the game last week. I think Stefanski is a great offensive coach. I think Pelzig, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the coordinator, he could have had one of the worst game plans I have ever seen. There was absolutely no attack. He came out attacking with Marvin Harrison. Harrison did nothing the rest of the game. It's like they completely abandoned the pass. They're trying to run the ball, run right into Allen and everything. Another thing to remember is Wirfs and Conklin. Stefanski said it's possible they could play. If they play, that's going to be a huge boost to this battered up offensive line. You got to play the spot. You got to play the trenches advantage for the Browns. I'll take the Browns +3.5.
Yeah, this is a game I got to give out this week too. I just felt like right now it's the time to Washington is so highly valued. Raiders at the Broncos. Both these teams,
also, like, if you can get a plus number at them not to make the playoffs, you should do that as well too. Like,
we don't know how good they are right now. Everyone's going to get film on their defenses now, and their defense is terrible. Like, they have to be scoring at this clip that they're scoring in order for them to be winning games. And the moment that they have a turnover or two, miss a field goal or two, like small things like that, they're just going to start losing. And
And I mean, like, back to this point, like, a lot of these quarterbacks, like, Darnold's been playing good, but when, and I'll throw Jaden Daniels in with this comment, playing when everything is going your way versus playing behind adversity are two completely different things.
A team with Myles Garrett, with Schwartz, right, that are going to be scheming for you now.
Yeah.
Way different situation. The Raiders at the Broncos. Broncos are a 3-point favorite. Broncos picked up a victory in this really ugly, sloppy, wet, rainy game where
love it.
Right? They had 60 yards passing at halftime. Nix was 7 for 15 for -7 yards. 5 different guys caught a pass and none had positive yardage. He did not complete a pass beyond the line of scrimmage in the first half. Did not generate a successful play on any of the 16 dropbacks. First player to post a 0% success rate in the first half in the next gen stats era. Lowest passing yards per attempt in a win ever. 60 yards passing on 25 passing attempts. They got the job done, though. The big play and a couple big plays from Sutton. They leaned on Javonte Williams down the stretch. And their defense has only allowed 16 points over the last 2 weeks to Tampa and to the Jets. They were only up by 1 on the final 3 drives. They forced the Jets to punt, turnover on downs, and miss a 50-yard field goal. They shut down Hall, who only had 18 total yards on 12 touches. And you got the Raiders, who, without Adams, without Crosby, were able to step up and win. It's not a lot of positive what you're hearing over there, though. I don't know how good of a coach Pierce is. Adams wants to leave. They don't have many. That takes away, obviously, a big playmaker from them. It was nice that they were able to run the ball a little bit better last week. I'm probably staying away. If I was going to lean one way at 3, it would be towards the Raiders, but this one isn't a game I'm like diving into play.
Oh, I took the Raiders plus 3.
Yeah.
You know, teams coming off back-to-back home wins that are coming home, only 40% ATS, 40.6% ATS. I kind of feel that speaks to how this is a letdown spot. And when you have a young team like the Broncos, this screams letdown to me. Divisional road dogs that are small, 2, 3 or less, 57% the last 10 years, 60% the last 5 years. Do we trust Bo Nix to win with margin? Look, it's been great. They've been able to BS their way to some wins, but really perplexed with the Jets only giving Breece Hall limited stuff. I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield guy. I think that was a scheduled loss for the Broncos,
For Tampa, yeah.
Broncos allowing 109 yards per game rushing. Finally, I think we're going to see this Raiders wide zone rushing attack be able to take advantage of this wide 9 system that the Broncos do deploy. Crosby should be back. This is going to be with how bad the Broncos offensive line has been. Crosby's going to be living in the backfield, making Nix uncomfortable. Raiders, I think they kind of figured out their offense with their run game. 152 last game. That's the first time they went over 100 yards. And also with no Davante Adams, I think this is going to be another big rushing game with White. Maybe this is the time White finally gets that first touchdown. White and Madison, I think they're going to lean on the run game a lot. I don't trust a rookie quarterback winning with margin. The road divisional dogs trend, the trend of teams winning 2 in a row and then coming home, and just I'm fading every rookie quarterback laying points because I don't think rookies should be laying a field goal of anything over 3 or higher. So I'm gonna take the Raiders here. Plus the points. It kind of seems like Pierce is kind of saying, "Hey, it's my way or the highway." I think the whole thing with Davante Adams, I think it's going to be crazy how his hamstring issue is magically fixed as soon as he gets traded to whatever team he gets traded to.
Yeah, a few options. Chiefs is the one that people keep talking about.
There's no way.
Not in the division. There's no way.
No way in hell. First of all, let me rant. Stephen A. Smith is a moron. Stephen A. Smith is talking about the Chiefs trading for Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs trading for Davante Adams. There is literally no way in hell that
the one that I could see them trading for would be Cooper. That one would make sense to me if the Browns lose a couple games.
See, but what role does Rashid Weiss play? Rashid Weiss plays the underneath type role. Cooper is a guy that looks to extend the field.
And I'm not even, and see, for me, I'm not even necessarily talking about their roles. I just think they need, between Rice, Hollywood Brown, and even Pacheco, I just think they need some guys, some playmakers, because they cannot lean on Kelsey for 15 more weeks. He doesn't have that much left. He can pop up for some big games and some big drives here and there. And I agree with you. Hill, someone else is going to get Hill. They're not going to get Hill. I don't think they could get one of those top premier guys. Adams would make no sense. Cooper at least is like not as valued as high as those guys. I could see him being a guy there that would go, but
I mean, if they trade, I think it's going to be a random underneath guy, like a Demario Douglas type player, someone they trade from there. But in terms of this game, I think this is just a Raider spot. I think they're gonna actually straight up win the game.
Let's get to the Cardinals at the 49ers. I'm waiting on this one a little bit, Eric. The 49ers are favored by 7. I'm going to try to wait. Do you think this goes above the 7? Do we get to 7.5 here? Because that's when I would jump in on Arizona. Mainly, their offense is good enough for them to get a backdoor cover in a game like this. San Francisco, with some of their concerns, I don't know if they should be favored by this much quite yet over teams. They're still missing a lot of their weapons. Even last week, if they were playing against a different team than the Patriots, that game would have been much closer. They kept giving the Patriots opportunities, and the Patriots could not move the ball at all. If the games were flipped, Arizona would absolutely been able to move the ball a little bit more in that same situation. I just think the number is big enough for Arizona's offense to be able to get a cover. I'm going to wait a little bit though, because I think we may be, do we get the 7.5?
I actually got the 7.5.
There you go. So it could go back that way.
I think it gets back up there. Road divisional dogs last 7 years, 57%. Murray as a dog, 63.4. Getting 3 or more, he's 67. Teams that lost by 24 or more points the last 20 years are 54% against the spread, 37% ROI. Last 5, it digs up to 55. There's this weird thing. It's like if a team loses by 17 or more and then plays a team that wins by 17 or more, it's 61% ATS. Defensive line, right side of the 49ers, I think you're going to look to exploit heavy rush game to that side of the field. Shanahan, 44% against the dog. I think they're going to win the game. I don't think they're going to cover. I have serious questions in this Niners back four. Who's going to be able to cover Marvin Harris? Look, this 49ers team is a great team. And
Purdy's been really good too in the last few weeks.
Move the ball, but it's just, and I think the word's nutrition. I'll say that. They've been playing so much football. It's just natural. All these guys are just getting banged up because of how much toll it takes on your body.
Yep.
Purdy's been great. Jordan Mason has a history getting hurt. They're running him into the ground. If you go to that, it goes to the rookie Guerrero. I think this is just a card spot after having an embarrassing loss to the Commanders. 49ers with a big win over the Patriots. I think Murray's going to be able to extend plays. I think that Connor's going to have success running the ball, and I don't think they have anyone to defend Harrison. I think this is backdoor written all over. I took the Cardinals here plus the 7 in the hook.
Packers are a 3-point favorite on the road. One thing that just sort of concerns me a little bit in a situation like this, as being favored on the road like this, they have a bad kicker. Braden Narvinson is the only kicker to miss a field goal under 40 yards this year. NFL kickers are 99.1% from under 40. He missed from 37 on Sunday. In a year where everybody has a really good kicker, you leave a few points on the field here and there. The spot feels like it should be the Rams, because the Rams had their big win a couple weeks ago against the 49ers. Then they were a little bit flat last week. Ball didn't bounce their way. Bears ended up getting a win when the Rams absolutely could have won that game. At the very least, could have covered. So I feel like the Rams spot is the right spot to be. I get worried about this team right now, Eric, because they are so banged up and they're continuing to lose players. But I'm not laying it with the Packers on the road here.
Yeah, I went the 3.5. with the injuries to Cooper and Puka, what is the one thing that they want to do? They want to run the ball. And this Packers team, they have a hard time stopping the run. You look at the box score, who won the game against the Rams and the Bears? Rams totally dominated that box score. If, missed field goal, 2 trips in the red zone, missed field goal, 2 trips in the red zone, costly turnovers. I think this is just the Rams bounce back spot. I know that they put up 29 points. It's just with this Packers team, I think that Josh Jacobs signing was awful. I think they had numerous holes they need to address, and signing a running back wasn't one of them. I don't think they're going to be able to pressure Stafford. I think Kyron Williams is going to be able to run the ball. They don't have any run stoppers. And I'm getting McVay at home with points over 3. This is just a no-brainer bet to me.
Let's get to both of us on the Rams side. We go Giants at the Seahawks here. Seattle 6.5 point favorite now over the Giants. Do we know Neighbors, how he's doing right now where we sit?
I have no idea what's going on with Neighbors. It said he may not. And here's the thing, this is where it gets, as a gambler, you got to kind of know. If you like the Giants, you just kind of have to hold still. Just because if Neighbors is out,
it's going up.
Line is going to move up a little bit. If Neighbors plays, I think it's probably going to hold put.
Pretty close. And maybe it goes to 6, right? Not a lot of movement.
And the thing you have to ask yourself, are we buying Seattle? When we look at Seattle's body of work,
I'm not really.
Is it really that impressive? They barely beat a rookie quarterback making his first start. They went out to New England, barely beat New England. They manhandled the Dolphins, but the Dolphins were starting Skylar Thompson. Tim Boyd came in because that's when Tua was hurt. Then they just went and they couldn't do anything. They could not generate anything against Detroit defensively. So I think the Giants will have some success against them. Vikings defensive line. Oh, sorry. I'm reading my wrong note. My bad. When you look at the Giants D, they are elite up front. And take Cross out, this offensive line for the Seahawks is literally struggling. And I think they're going to be able to get to the quarterback. And a couple years ago, I've been doing this with you for 3 or 4 years. I made that comment about how after teams play the Eagles, they really struggled the last the game after. The last 2 years, teams that have played after they've played the Lions are only 38% against the number. Is that because of the physical brand that the Lions play? And if you look at this season, that trend is held up. Teams after they play Detroit have not looked good. Who did the Cardinals play the week before they played the Commanders? They played the Lions. Who did the Bucks play the week before they played the Broncos? They played the Lions. So it's kind of held up. We've had these teams after they played Detroit not look as good. Jones 65% as a dog. Smith 41% against the dog. Against 45% against the number as a favorite. Forsythe, is he going to be able to contain Thibodeau? I think that's the big matchup, because if he can't contain him, you're going to have to bring an extra tight end in. Another interesting trend. Teams that played on Monday Night Football in the East Coast and their next game was Sunday on the West Coast, 43% against the number the last 20 years. Look, when we look at Seattle's body of work, I don't think it's been that impressive. I like the Giants here, but I want 7, so I'm just going to hold back. Again, if Neighbors doesn't play, the number is going to balloon up a little bit more.
Cowboys at the Steelers. Pittsburgh is a 2.5 point favorite in this one. The Justin Fields comes off of a good game where they needed him to play well. He was basically their only offense because they couldn't run the ball at all with Najee Harris. Defense got exposed a little bit, though, for the Steelers, right? The Colts were able to go 2 long drives on them right away to start the game and to put them in a really tough position. The Cowboys have not been impressive, though. They're banged up right now, too. Lawrence, Parsons, Diggs was getting an IV last we saw. the Giants probably should have beat them on Thursday Night Football. They were just 3 of 10 on third down. The Cowboys finished with 11 penalties for 89 yards. I don't think either of these teams are that good. Pittsburgh's just a well-balanced, better team, but this is the spot where I don't really like playing Pittsburgh. They're not favored with a ton of margin, but they're favored. Dallas, I just don't know who they are right now. I'm staying away from this one, Erik.
Yeah, I'll be going to bed early on Sunday. I'll tell you what, I need my sleep, man. I am tired as hell. I cannot get a read on this game for the life of me. Tomlin as a favorite, 47% ATS. But when we look at the Cowboys' offensive line, how are they going to be able to stop this pass rush of Watt and everything? Lawrence out, Parsons may not play, and then you're going to be going up against Justin Fields, who's looked great, running, not forcing the ball, playing the smart choices, passing. A worry point for the Steelers is Cordell Patterson could be their only healthy running back going into the game. A little bit worried about that. Are the Cowboys going to be able to run the ball against, oh my God, I'm spacing on the guy's name, against Hayward with this banged up offensive line? Are the Cowboys without Lawrence and Parsons going to be able to create pressure? The thing that Lawrence has always done, and it pisses me, not Lawrence, excuse me, Justin Fields, is he runs into sacks. They don't get him. He literally runs into sacks. If you're not able to create pressure and get him off cue, then he's just going to be eating this defense alive. Both these teams, the Cowboys have some serious troubles defensively. Maybe look to play a Steelers team total over or play a Najee Harris rushing prop over. But in terms of side or anything or total, I want nothing to do with this game.
I do like the Monday night game, though, a little bit because I feel like I like our next game a little bit because I feel like we have Saints at the Chiefs, and we have two teams that I kind of know who they are at this point. The Saints weren't as good as their first two wins, but they were really unlucky last week with what happened. They absolutely should have won that game against the Falcons. Though they gave up 14 points in that game, they still had the lead with a minute to go, and they gave up a 58-yard field goal to lose the game by 2. Should have won that game.
Easily won the Eagles game too.
Absolutely. And they didn't play well in that game, but they could be 4-0. The Chiefs could have lost all 4 of their games. They're really banged up right now. They're losing playmakers all over. Mahomes hasn't been that good. This just feels like the game where things kind of bounce back a little bit. And I actually think the Saints are going to win this game straight up. I play them on the money line here. And as a big dog here, I like the Saints in this situation. It sounds sort of like you do too.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of got to just play him here. When you look at Mahomes, 45% length, 3.5 or more, how is this offense going to look without Rashee Rice? That's the big thing. I think this is going to be a great opportunity, with that being said, to play some Juju Smith-Schuster props. When he was in this role of Rashee Rice was 2 years ago, he was 18th in yards after catch. So I'm going to look to play some of his receiving props over. Chiefs allow 99 yards per game running, second DVOA. But when we just kind of take a step back and let's kind of do a little bit of a deeper dive into this. They play the Chargers. Chargers were without 2 offensive linemen. They allowed 55 yards rushing. Falcons, 82 yards, 2 offensive line missing. They played the Bengals. Granted, they only allowed 74, but the Bengals, 23rd DVOA against the run. They allowed over 150 yards. Sorry, they allowed 185 to the Ravens. That's a top 10 rushing attack. The Saints are a top 10 rushing attack. So I think they're going to be able to have success running the ball against the Chiefs. When you look at the Chiefs, do you trust their guards? The interior of their offensive line has been great. Left and right tackle have been absolutely brutal. I think that that's going to continue here. As much as everyone wants to give Allen flack, Allen is able to do a great job defensively creating pressure. Carr, 55% ATS as a dog. I think the Saints have better weapons. I think they're better defensively right now. And I think Kamara's in line for a huge game. And eventually everything evens out.
Yep.
like you said, Saints, one of the most unluckiest teams. I think it's going to finally even out. I think the Saints cover here in line to win.
Yeah, the Chiefs are due for one of those games where they like get beat up a little bit, where they lose by 2 scores, where they just like things just don't go their way for a game. And you and I are both on the Saints here. So, Erik, my friend, thank you so much for being a little flexible this week. You and I will be together again on Sunday morning, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. Make sure to come hang out with both of us as we get you all set up for the Sunday and the Monday games. Give us your plugs for your podcast and anything else you want to mention before we get out of here.
Eta, my podcast comes out every single Friday afternoon, Friday night. This week, we're going to be talking UFC fight card. We're going to give out some NFL bets, talk a little DFS and some NASCAR. And then I have a live show every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. You send in a horse racing video, and I give out some NFL bets with a guest.
Erik, buddy, good work as always. Hopefully we can keep it rolling for some of these dogs that we love early in the season. It's been a good start for some of us underdog players. Thanks so much, everyone, for hanging out with us. Best of luck to all of you playing NFL Week 5.